Okay, I'll appreciate everyone joining us and welcome to the Power Hour for July 28th. This Power Hour is being hosted by Talentcare, who I will pass it over to here in a minute, talking about the topic of winning the fight for workers against the odds. My name is Chris Tremp. I'm the VP for Swift Ops and the one who invited you to this. So hopefully you got that invite, didn't have any issues getting on board. And we've got some of the Swift Ops team here as well. Now, a couple things to cover before we hand it over to Talentcare is that this session is strictly informational. So we are not going to take any live Q&A unless there is time at the end of the session. So if there is time at the end of the session, we'll do that. If you have any questions, though, there's an email address on your screen, info@swiftops.com. If there's anything that we can pass forward that is Talentcare related in terms of just basic question, we can do it that way. If it's a question about Swift Ops or not, we can do that as well. We are recording this, as you just heard the recording warning go off. So we will have this available for review and rewatching if need be after this session, probably tomorrow. And we're also going to provide everybody a link to a landing page, which is co-branded between our two companies. And this is where you can submit your information if you'd like to have a conversation with Talentcare about their platform. And the reason why I say that is that Swift Ops and Talentcare are preferred partners. So we've come to an agreement to work with each other, not exclusive, but very excited about it. And we are working on an integration between our two systems. So as we are developing that, I wanted to make sure that we were able to present Talentcare to our subscribers and have them talk about their expertise in their area and show you what they can do in terms of their platform as well as it ties into the information related. So if you are interested in their platform, that link will be sent out to you. I'll send it to all the attendees and registrants via email. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Smith, the CEO and founder of Talentcare, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and kill my camera and have Eric take the show. Eric, go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And thank you for saying the nice things you did about Talentcare. We feel the same way. We're really pleased to be in a partnership with you guys, and I appreciate the opportunity today to talk to all of the folks that have joined us, and thank you for joining. So today, and I'm going to share my screen here, today we're going to talk through a few things, particularly around how to win the war for staff in a very difficult environment. And we're going to talk a little bit about, we're certainly going to talk about what technology can do, but we're also going to talk about branding and so forth. So when I use the word technology or platform, I'm going to use that in a very broad sense, because that is really what it takes to win. It's a foundation and an ecosystem, starting with your employer brand. So we'll review the full platform you need in order to win. No idea why we have this picture in here, but that's me. Maybe I'll take the opportunity not to talk about me, but a little bit of the company. We started about a decade ago. We started in healthcare recruiting. We were actually a recruiting firm, exclusively using some fancy data and psychometric testing and so forth. And about 4 or 5 years ago, we really shifted our business to be more of a technology business, a brand business, building career sites and helping people prove their process. So basically all the things that we learned. And so we have an offering that helps people build that foundation. And we'll talk through some of that today. So this is what we're going to try to get through today. We're going to talk a little bit about the challenges in the space. Obviously, you already know about the talent challenges, so we won't spend a lot of time on that. The real question is, what do you do about it? And what are some, maybe if you can take two or three things away today that might be useful for your business, then we will have succeeded. We'll talk about some sourcing tactics, which includes brand and so forth. And then we'll wrap up with a little bit of data, two different versions on the kinds of data that you'd like to have in the right kind of technology platform that would help you improve your results. So obviously this is the environment we're in. These are just a few stats and figures. The pandemic certainly had its effect in all the labor markets. Home anything got hit pretty hard, except for people who are delivering to homes. It's come back with a vengeance. Many of you are probably looking very hard or have been looking very hard for staff. And you may be experiencing that, for instance, down here, bottom right, some people just are afraid to come back. Nothing to do with rich unemployment, but there are certainly people with unemployment benefits that are keeping them out of the market. And the workforce is shrinking, right? People are deciding, maybe I don't want to be in healthcare at all, or home care. Maybe I want to move out. So in the home and health space, there are issues there. And look, I'd like to be able to tell you that I think it's going to get better, but you can already see certain parts of the country beginning to shut down or require certain masking and other kinds of things. And it just feels a bit like it could go back the other way. And while that may be bad for the business, I think it's likely that for most of our healthcare clients, including you all, there will still be a big need, but an even more difficult supply of staff. And so again, it's not about trying to create them. You can't control that, but you can compete for them. And so what we'll talk about today is how one can compete for talent. Some of the things that you have to do in order to compete, if we just kind of go around the horn here, are listed out. So staff turnover is probably was an issue for your business. It generally is in the business that you all are in, and it will continue to be. But things that you can do to reduce that, selecting better brand helps, as we'll talk about, make a big difference. So that's one of the things that you've got to do. You need to have a process that doesn't allow the candidate to kind of drift off to some other provider, some other hirer, maybe in business, maybe outside of the business that you're in. But having a process that engages them early and brings them through is important. Obviously, there are industry shortages, just means you have to compete harder for it. And really tech enabling your recruiting process. Many of you may not have as much technology. You may not even know what an applicant tracking system is. But candidates today expect to be able to apply on their smartphone. You know, this is their world right here. They apply here. They don't apply on a computer. They may not drop by your place. They expect to be texted. And so having your recruiting process meet them where they are. They can find jobs on Facebook if that's where they are, and they can go all the way through the process elegantly from there. Is really important. And we've talked about the COVID related challenges already. So there's plenty on your plate. So again, we're going to spend our time breaking this down a little bit and talking about what one can do to compete. And these are 4 things that we're in today's world talking a lot to our clients about. So what can you do to compete for talent in this world that we're in today? So first, having a compelling employer brand that attracts job seekers and helps you stand out from your competitors, right? Home health, home care jobs, caregiver jobs are jobs that are hard to differentiate if you don't work at it. You know, an agency is an agency, a company is a company. They're all the same. I'm just going to go work for, you know, that person in that home and so forth. You really have to spend some time building that out. And we're going to show you some examples or two. The point here is that it needs to be authentic. It needs to be what the job seeker would experience if they were to come on. So don't tell them you have great training. If you have no training programs, as an example, they're likely to leave. And it needs to be authentic, and it needs to be differentiating. It really has to be different from what your competitors say about themselves and what they are. So that's number 1, building an employer brand and having that brand on your career site, on the job boards, infused in your job ads that you write for your, to post your jobs, and all the way to the way you manage your reputation on Glassdoor and Indeed and respond to reviews. That whole spectrum needs to have that brand infused so that the candidate really gets the story. So that's number one. The second is effective communication. We call it speed to engagement. Here's a question for you. If do you have data that shows to you, a report that shows you that every one of your hiring managers who has applicants coming in that have completed their application and look attractive enough for an interview, are they are they reaching out to that candidate by text within 2 hours of the completed application? That's best practice. It's hard to do it if you can't measure it, but you can at least try to do it. So we call that speed to engagement, and it's getting, I saw your application come through, looks very attractive. Could you come by this afternoon for an interview? Or could we do a video interview this morning, that sort of thing. Early engagement doesn't mean speed to hire. People make that mistake sometimes. You don't want to hastily hire. You want to do all your background checking and all the due diligence you should, but grabbing them quickly, engaging them quickly is really important. And text is the way they expect to be engaged. Our system, for instance, our applicant tracking system, allows hiring managers and recruiters to use the system to send from an anonymous mobile number, not their personal mobile number. But in any case, if you're emailing or trying to get people by phone, you're going to not get as many people engaging with you. The third piece is recruiting process excellence. And I talked a little bit about engaging candidates, within 2 hours and so forth, but that's across the spectrum, right? So you need to look at your recruiting process and say, when I typically bring in a caregiver, what's my end-to-end time? What's my time from the time they apply to the time that I actually get them in? Are there ways of shortening that? Can you sign offer letters on an iPad in real time rather than waiting 3 days and having someone send them something and so forth? All of those things matter because the good ones go quickly. And so you'll want to make sure that you're looking at every step of the process. And when we engage with our clients, we're giving them data in order to look at that, to understand their cycle times and so forth, look at why this person is disqualifying people versus why this other person is disqualifying and so forth. And all of that data helps improve recruiting process and get to excellence. And then the last thing that's really important in today's environment is compensation competitiveness. We've all seen the pictures of McDonald's with the $500 sign-on bonus for someone who's going to flip burgers. Pretty astounding in any market, but it's pretty. That's happening a lot, and it's happening a lot in things outside of restaurants, of course, and in your business. And so, in your market and for your roles, do you know how competitive it is? Do you know what the balance of number of jobs versus number of candidates applying is? This is the kind of data that we provide our clients. Do you know what's competitive in terms of wage and what sign-on bonuses you might have to engage in for now? And do you have the ability to get that data? And then in real time, say in 3 months' time, when the labor markets calm back down, do you have that data that allows you to move back down the pay scale? You don't want to build in that permanent inflation, because there is a cap on revenue, of course. So these are 4 things that we spend a lot of time talking about with our clients today. There are, of course, others that we talk about, but these are 4 of some of the more important ones, and would encourage you, obviously, to kind of think about your own business and how that might play in. Another thing that we sometimes like to do is really just ask these 6 questions. It's kind of the 6 questions we always start a conversation with. And the net of it is, if you can't say yes to all of these, then you're at a disadvantage, right? You've got other people who are grabbing candidates and picking the better candidates because of it. So do you have a career site that lists all your jobs open at any time, in real time, from time to time? Meaning, is it reflective of what your need is right now without having to do a lot of manual work? Can an applicant understand why it's better to work for you versus somewhere else? This is that employer brand, and we're going to spend some time on that. Can a candidate easily apply from a smartphone? If your technology doesn't allow you, your candidates to easily find the job and apply for the job all using a smartphone. In other words, if it was built for a PC screen and it's very hard to navigate, guess what happens? The candidates bail out. They won't stay around for very long. Are you responding to reviews on Glassdoor and Indeed? This is something that you're undoubtedly, for instance, really working hard on your Yelp reviews, your Google reviews, the customer-facing kinds of reviews where people can leave a review on how good your service is, and that is important. It's just as important to be managing that reputation on the other side. And so if you're not responding and if you're not giving your staff opportunities to leave reviews, then you're missing something there in terms of defending your brand. Simple question: do you have the data that tells you where your best candidates come from? Do you know whether you might know that ZipRecruiter gets you lots of them, but is that better than Craigslist? Do you know the difference? How many hires do you get out of each one of those? What's your cost per hire? What's your cost per applicant? Those kinds of data, which are easily available with the right kind of system, is the kind of data that helps you from wasting money, keeps you from wasting money on job ads. And a lot of people end up doing that. And then finally, are you screening candidates with any sort of sophisticated methods? And reading a resume in an interview is not a sophisticated method. Are you using any psychometric testing? Do you have certain ways of doing behavioral interviews? There are several ways that you can approach that. We have ways that are possible inside our system, but a good technology platform for recruiting will give you those options. And of course, screening with those kinds of methods does help with retention ongoing, because you're picking the people that look like the ones that succeed in that role for your company. Now, in this time of these questions here, I would certainly put that one sixth, because for many of you, I know that the issue is just, I can't get enough to apply. So we'll spend most of our time today talking about that. But this is, if you think about, kind of the full end-to-end spectrum and a technology platform that enables this, these are some of the things that all need to be enabled. So, how are you going to stand out to job seekers? Job number one is to let them find you, impress them, get them to click the apply button. It's as simple as that. And there are just lots and lots of people who are, who will be sometimes, a little bit lost, can't kind of quite differentiate. So maybe there's no employer brand specifically. Is there a career page that's easy to navigate, or do you not even have a career page? Many of you may not have had a career site that gives those job listings. And do you have a partner or anyone else that you can rely on to really be thoughtful about how you spend your money to apply for jobs versus, to advertise your jobs rather than to just be saying, well, $500 last month on Indeed didn't work, so let's try 1,000, because that's obviously could be good money after bad. So we're about to move into kind of a little bit of a show and tell period here, where I'm going to try to take you through a couple of examples so you can visualize some of the things I'm talking about. But just to kind of remind a little bit of, kind of what it really takes to win the whole spectrum here. Employer brand and reputation management, which we'll look at some examples of. This is telling the story and defending the story. A career site and the whole tech ecosystem, including your applicant tracking system. So this is, how do they find the job using search engine optimized techniques to make sure as many candidates find your jobs, and then an applicant tracking system that makes it easy for the applicant to apply and makes it easy for your team to assess which ones they should engage and to engage them early, as I mentioned before. Lots of data and insights, like we've been talking about as I've gone along here, best sources of hires, best sources of applicants, turnover reports, disqualification reports, all of those. And then finally, recruiting operations excellence, as we talked about. So are you really focused on that part of your business as an important part of your business, like you might be in terms of scheduling and other parts of your business that are obviously important? Getting the operation right and taking that data-driven operations view, process-driven view is important, and especially for independents and growing companies like many of you are. So let's just take a look at the real world here a little bit. I'll stop sharing and then maybe reshare this. And I sort of picked at random this group here. I could pick any industry. I could pick, but here they are. This is just a company we'll use as an example. And if you sign up on the little sign up landing page that Chris talked about earlier, we can go through the pain of going through yours and seeing where we could make some improvements. But I use this as an example. So this is you can see what they do as a company. This is their careers page. If I go to the main page, they do have careers up here at the top. That's a good thing. Hold on, let me just get back to Team Select again. So this is their main page here, and they hit career. You hit careers, and they've got this Join Team Select area, and you've got lots of things you can see here. This is what today an applicant, a job seeker would expect to see on this page. I've hit careers. I know the company, or I found the company. And now all I need to do is see two things. I need to know, why should I apply here, and what jobs do you have, and make it easy for me to find. And immediately you can see here that while there's a nice picture, and we love pictures of real employees and so forth, and these look like the team, that's great. But already I've got 3 different areas of jobs, and I can kind of view all of them. That's good that they've got them available there, but I'll come to that in a second. And then the other thing is to learn about what it's like to work here, right? And so many of you may look at this and you might say, okay, they did a pretty good job. They love what you do. It talks about leadership and culture and best place to work and so forth. The problem with all of this is that almost any of their competitors could say the same thing. And it doesn't really make me feel like I've either found my tribe or I haven't. And think about it that way. Does this differentiate from the group down the street? And will a candidate be able to look at this and say, those are my people. I want to work with that one for whatever reason, right? And so it's what we kind of call we language. It's talking about them. Of course, the jobs we'll look at in a second. But there's not much else there. I mean, it's reasonably well presented, but it doesn't help me understand. And it kind of splits things off in different areas. So if I click on nursing, I get a nursing list, but there are other ways of doing that. But let's kind of just go to view all jobs and take a look at this. So one of the things you notice here is that they have a lot of information that the candidate doesn't care about. Rec ID numbers, and the location is okay, of course, but it doesn't give me a whole lot else. And really importantly, from a search engine optimization perspective, meaning showing up high on Google searches, if someone were to type in occupational therapist in this particular place, then it would, it wouldn't show up very high because they don't have as many of the words, the descriptions underlying it. And I'll hold that thought as I show you some examples of how we do it in a minute. And if you click on any one of these roles, you get a job description that has another weird font. It probably wouldn't render very well on a phone. Just looking at it, you guys can see what I mean by that. And get to the bottom, and there's no apply, but there is apply up here. And if I click apply there, it goes into one of the death knells of application process, right? So imagine you're the candidate. You've gone through this. You fought through the job description that was in tiny little font, and now I've got to assign it. And what this does is take you through a sign up process if you don't have an account with iCIMS. And so you can see that it's really not Team Select anymore. It's now on the iCIMS URL. So you have a data break. That means that you probably won't be able to see exactly where each candidate came from as easily as you should, and so forth. So again, this company probably thought they made some of the right investments. They thought that, the marketing team probably thought they put together a pretty good page. The data would tell us that this isn't generating the number of candidates it should. And I can tell you that our studies of these kinds of things would say that this kind of application process with a sign in or requiring a resume, which you can't do from a phone, means that candidates drop and then they never come back. And so that's obviously not a terribly positive thing. If I go to Indeed, which of course is where a lot of people will go and never see the main site, and if I'm an LPN or a caregiver in that kind of group, particularly, I may come here. One of the things I wanted to show you is a lot of people just assume that everything's just fine out there. But if you can see there, I've typed in team select, and there are at least 3 team selects that are probably the same company: home care not spaced, and so forth. These need to be consolidated. This is part of defending your reputation, because anyone can open one up and leave a zinger that may not get seen, but may not be seen by you, but would be seen by a job seeker. So if I select on that one, and here's their page. So, good picture there. I like that in the sense that it looks like someone working, although I'm not sure I can identify myself specifically there because I don't see any faces, but they're, made an attempt at it. The Why Join Us page, again, is a bunch of we languages. We won these awards, and best workplaces are good, but it's not really, nothing that's differentiating. Culture of fun, I can't tell you how many of them say that. So again, just because it's might be true does not mean it's differentiating. And you really want people to be able to look at that and say, those are my people, I'm going to apply here. The reviews, you can see they've got plenty of reviews, and good ones and bad ones, but they're not responding to the reviews. And so that's, Gen Zs and millennials expect an engaged employer. The first way you can communicate that you're an engaged employer is to respond to reviews on Indeed and Glassdoor and so forth. And that's a missed opportunity. So this is another view of that. Now, what I'd like to do is back out of this and kind of get us out of anything to do with home health or home care or healthcare or any of that, and go to something that we can all understand, which is burgers and pancakes. And reason I want to do this is I want to show you an example of what a brand can be. And the way I like to say it is, if you can develop a compelling and differentiating brand for a burger flipping joint, then you probably can do it with something that's meaningful like home care. So this is our client site. We've been working with them for 5 years. This is one of the few clients that we have that's not in healthcare, but I love to show it because it's just so approachable. So you can see it's a family-friendly kind of good food burger joint. They've got places for the kids to play and a bar for the parents to drink. It's one of those kinds of places. And growing like crazy, really growing fast. High turnover roles, just like yours, different, but same sort of challenge from that perspective. And if you watch this, we actually chose the word jobs rather than careers, because in this industry that SEO is higher, it's more searched, and so you do everything to attract. And so if you watch the URL up here, when I click jobs, you'll see that it went to Hat Creek Jobs from hatcreekburgers.com. And now you're in our world, but you see that it didn't open up a new window. It didn't open up an iSIMS thing. I know as the candidate, I'm in the right place. And I might have mistakenly hit jobs. And if I want to go back to the breakfast menu, then it takes me right back to the breakfast menu. So it's essentially one whole from the job seeker's perspective, but allows us to track data and do other things. And on this page, I can do those two things. I can read about it in a brand, and I can find the jobs. I've got a tech platform that's giving me an easy way to find all the jobs in a high search engine optimized way. And I've got a story that differentiates me, that attracts the candidate to apply. So let's go to employee life. So when we build a brand, we do a few things. We do an all staff survey. We do focus groups face-to-face with employees. We do some individual interviews, and we do a very detailed review of 3 or 4 competitors for talent. So in this case, we were doing In-N-Out Burger, which has moved to Texas, and Hopdoddy, which many of you may know, which is a fancy burger place. But we looked at the way they talked about themselves and how they talked about employment on social media and all of those things that matter to the brand, and compared Hat Creek to them. And of course, now we've, years later, we've gotten them to where they're the high scoring, if you will, and better than all of them, because they've filled the holes and doing all the right things. This is the brand pillars that came out of that work. So sincerity that surprises you. I mean, if you just think about that, like that's not the first word you'd expect to see on something to do with a burger joint. Sincerity and smiles, and imagine being able to stop and take the time to really care. And if you've been to a Hat Creek, maybe you haven't, but if you have, you really actually feel this. So this is authentic. It came from the employees. We didn't talk to management. We don't care what they think. We didn't talk to the private equity guys behind them. We don't care what they think. We only care about what the employees think, because they'll tell you what it's really like. Mastering a magnified U. A lot of these folks are young, maybe the first job. So being a better person, a better leader, et cetera. These are things that you just don't expect, but it's true, it's authentic, and it's differentiating. If you went to Hot Dottie or In-N-Out Burger, they may have their own, but it's not going to be this. And so this allows a candidate to say, these are my people. I get them completely. Sure, it has some other things they can explore quickly, perks and benefits, awards, which are important, but doesn't have a lot of detail. It doesn't take me into a rabbit hole of detail. And who knew there was a career path in a place like this? But indeed there is. And so very quickly, in 3 minutes on my phone, I can read that, I can watch this video, and I can easily decide whether this is the place for me, and I can apply today. And when I do that, this is all on one page. So again, we're not opening up different pages. That's again for search engine optimization. So the jobs show up high on Google searches. On the job listing, you want it to do a few things. You want to make it really easy to find out what jobs are available and how many of them, and where they're available. And sometimes, we have other needs like the kind of job, full-time, part-time, but it basically giving you the basic categories of the roles. And so I can very easily say, well, I'm in Lakeway, and I'm not a manager, and I certainly can't cook, so I must be a cashier. You'll notice that the way that we write this, we repeat the word job. That's because its search engine optimizes high. So Google is looking at this site and saying, there are lots of jobs there. I think I'll put it high. If someone writes, burger joint jobs, it's gonna come up high in their locations. So there are reasons why we do everything. And you can even see that the language of the job ad is on this page, but I don't see it all right now. Again, all for search engine optimization so that more people see it. And in roles like yours, that's just so important to be there, because there are lots of competitors for the folks you're going after. But if I click cashier job, again, job ad here, not a job description. And it starts off with why you'll love it. And it's talking about those brand pillars. It uses upbeat and happy and those kinds of things. Talks a bit about what it's like to do it, to do this role at Hat Creek, and some responsibilities and qualifications, but not a wall of words. Many people make the mistake of they think that a job description needs to be highly detailed. At this level, it needs to be a job ad that's attracting them to apply. And then finally, I can just click on. So 2 clicks and I'm in. Now we're in the applicant tracking system, still on the same URL there. And what is it doing? It's not asking me a bunch of questions. I don't have to upload a resume, although I can if I want. I may not be able to do that on my phone, but it's getting the basic information. Give me your name, your number, and can I text you? Because as I mentioned, one of the most important ways to engage, the most important way to engage candidates today is by text. And then after this, the candidate would go through a process that's customizable, but you'd be asking the key questions and being able to score the answers to those questions so that you can see very quickly which applicants are the ones you want to engage. On Indeed, this same company looks a little different from our friends that we looked at before. You can see here, they've got a little bit of basic for the company, but here are those brand pillars that we talked about before, obviously in a different format and maybe a little less engaging because it's Indeed's format, but I can read through these and understand that this is a different place, and I can see myself or not in the brand, which is the whole point of that employer brand. The reviews are being responded to here. This is actually us responding on behalf of our client. We agree a way of responding to each kind: compensation, poor management, good management, so forth. And a real person actually does these. We also run campaigns to have their employees leave more reviews. But the key thing here is that you're showing engagement to those candidates who expect an engaged employer. And then these jobs, of course, are being distributed straight out from the applicant tracking system to the career site and onto the job boards like Indeed, as we see here. We obviously do this in other spaces. This is a group that does home care and home health that we work with. They use our applicant tracking system. We built a multi-brand career site for them here, as you can see, the job listings all listed out there. In this case, this is their employer brand, what came from them. So obviously a hero's calling, there's that, and it needs to be clear and true and authentic, and that came through in the data and the focus groups. This is when you don't often see this, when you know that it's really something that's authentic, but having leadership you can rely on, especially in this business, as you guys know, is a real way to win people and to keep people. And then getting the right support. These people are out in the field, and so being able to feel like they've got open lines of communication and get supported by the central staff is really important. There's some quotes here and other kinds of things that one can explore if one is trying to understand more about it. Nothing wrong with perks and benefits. It's just not your employer brand. You never compete on perks and benefits. That's more like table stakes, really. So I hope that was useful. Just a few examples of some good and some bad, and give you some things to think about. Maybe go take a look at the things that you've got in your own environment. But I think it's worth maybe taking some of those thoughts and doing just that. Let me come back now to the deck, and we'll just finish up with a few more thoughts, and then happy to take any questions. So data. We've talked a lot about brand. We've talked about applicant tracking process. We've talked about career sites. We've talked about reputation. But that's all fine, and you need it. It's important, as we've talked about. But you also need data to make adjustments and so forth. And so having the data that comes with a good applicant tracking system, which is what Chris talked about in terms of the integration that we're doing between our systems, really helps you in a bunch of different ways, right? Having that data really helps you do these things. So first, spend where it matters, right? A lot of people spend a whole lot of time, wasting money on job ads because they don't know the data that would tell them where their best candidates come from. And not just their best candidates or their applicants or the most applicants, but again, where the hires come from. And even beyond that, the hires that stay with you longest may be coming from a certain source. It may be your career site once you have that up and running. Many times it is, rather than the people that are just going to job boards and posting to a bunch of roles. So you want to understand that, and you want to be putting your money where it matters. Obviously, if you have data and you can be better at recruiting, many times you can save the expense of outside recruiters too. Again, data, as I mentioned before, around attracting and engaging candidates, but that engagement piece is what I would really highlight. If you don't have a report that tells you whether you're engaging quickly and by text with your candidates, or another way to think about it is how stale your applicant pool is, how many of them been sitting in there for 14 days, you assume that person's still waiting to get interviewed in a job, but they're probably long gone, especially if they're good. If they're still hanging around, they may not be as good as you'd like them to be. And then using data to screen and select, as we've talked about. And then, ROI, your business today probably feels like an unlimited demand business. And it's only constrained by the staffing that you can do. And so avoiding that lost revenue by making sure you're fully staffed and retaining better is important. Obviously, increasing your retention, the cost of turnover can be high for a business. Training, admin inefficiencies, recruiting inefficiencies, and so forth. And so lowering turnover really can make a difference. And, even down to overtime and things like that, where if you're just understaffed, you're paying overtime at a higher rate than you like, there's some inefficiencies there. So there's a real ROI for doing recruiting right and making the right investments. And we talked a little bit about compensation, and I wanted to come back to that because that's also a little bit data driven. So compensation is, let me just say a couple of things about that. So compensation is a double-edged sword. Yes, you need to be right today, but you don't want to be overpaying tomorrow. But you also don't want to get into the situation where you think that you can now compete because you've got the right compensation model only. And so again, this is just a reminder of some of the things we've talked about here. But we have a lot of people who come to us and say, we're having trouble. We think it's compensation. If we can fix that compensation, we're there. Can you help us figure out how much we should pay? And we say, look, compensation is never just the only way. It's one of many ways to compete. And so again, making some of these themes that we've talked about a little bit today, branding, making yourself visible so they can find you, and making sure they understand who you are, and having some experts that can help you run recruiting campaigns on Facebook. I mean, it's not your business sometimes to do those things. You may not have a full staff of recruiters and candidate marketers and so forth. And so we many times end up being that expert that can sit alongside you. Having the career site that we talked about, that's high search engine optimized, and an application process that is frictionless, that doesn't land on a sign-in page or doesn't require a resume, but is easy and has as few clicks as possible and allows the candidate to know they're in the right place all along the way based on the branding and the look and feel. Using your applicant technology then to source those and to pick the right ones, as we've talked about. And then again, it comes back to some data. If you know what's going on in your operation, you can make it better. And what we find is that people really underestimate that part of the business. They underestimate the recruiting operation side. So again, think of it as the equivalent to the operation side on the service side of the business, and make those similar investments and do that same analysis on that side too. Netting it out, these are the benefits that you're going to get. We find that when we run what we call the front end play, which is your brand, your career site, your applicant process, your reputation management, that can radically increase the number of applicants that are coming to you, to your career site. Number one, as high as 700% increase we see in the first 3 months. So it really can change radically. Doesn't always change that much. Sometimes it's 30 or 40%, but 30 or 40% is a lot in terms of being able to meet revenue and serve clients and patients. But we also find that the bounce rate is much lower. So people will come to a site and then they'll leave immediately because they don't see anything compelling, like the one I showed you for Team Select. It's not compelling. It didn't engage them. And so they'd have a lot of people that come in and bounce off in 20 seconds. You want to reduce that as much as possible and engage them. And then finally, convert as many possible. And you want to get that conversion rate. So how many people that land there actually click the apply button? And all of these things I've talked about today contribute to that. And it really is it's kind of a system and a foundation or a platform that you've got to build for yourself if you really want to compete with the big and the small in your business. And there are plenty of competitors in your business for talent. So those are all the prepared things we have. We do have a few more minutes. I don't know how Chris wants to handle it. I'm here for a little bit longer, of course, and I really appreciate everyone listening in today, and hope we get a chance to answer any other questions live or otherwise.
Sure. What we'll do here, I just turned the chat back on. If you wanted to throw any questions into the chat, go ahead. I'm going to share my screen quickly and just give you a quick view of the page that we've been talking about. So we will share this link with you. if you'd like to submit your information over to Talentcare and Eric and his team, and someone will reach out from Talentcare to, discuss the platform and your current situation and such. But this is what will reside as well in SwiftOps in our knowledge base. Once we have that article, once the integration is complete, this link will be in there as well. But we have this available, so I'll shoot that out. Oh, I apologize. I'll shoot that out to everyone this afternoon once we complete. So let me see. It looks like I got to pull over the chat. Will the participants receive a copy of the recording? Yes, I can send the copy of the recording as well as the link to this page. I just have to wait for the recording to complete in Zoom, and then it'll be available for me to share. What I would suggest is that you download it locally. We do not save these forever. So we will obviously post these in different places, but if you download it locally, once you have that link, you won't have to rely on the fact that it's saved in our Zoom. You would have it to refer to at any time. But like I said, we'll actually post these places as well. Many times we'll put it in the knowledge base or something like that. Any questions out there for Eric or us at all? Please shoot them into the chat, and we'd be happy to answer. Well, looks like we don't have anything just as of yet. Well, Eric, I thought it was excellent. I appreciate all the information and being able to use some real examples to show the difference between apparent quality and even when you dig further in and knowing what you actually need and can get out of certain platforms to be able to enhance your recruiting is so important, finding that sweet spot. So I don't see any other questions. Eric, if you had anything else you wanted to share, feel free.
No, I just appreciate the time that you all had today. I'm going to take that as proof that I must have, in my talk, answered every possible question there was about the whole topic. That makes me feel good about the rest of my day. But of course, separately, happy to answer any questions. And Chris, we really appreciate you and the SwiftOps team having us on today.
Very good. Well, we appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And small victories, right, Eric? So you've silenced the masses on this one. So appreciate it very much. If anyone does have any questions, they can use that link or use that info@swiftops.com. We'll be happy to route them to where they need. So hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Wednesday and rest of their week. And next month's Power Hour will be the same week, the last Wednesday of the month. And right now it is looking like that will be hosted by Home Care Pulse. So I'll have more details as we finalize things and get all that out later in August. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.